Member Tantramar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you through the chair to the Minister and her team for being here with us this afternoon. I do have a few questions I'd like to ask. And my first one relates to procurement. So something that I have been calling for and am passionate about is having some sort of import substitution policy. That's something the Centre for Local Prosperity has put out reports on, talking about how it can benefit our economy to have more dollars circulating locally. And so I was pleased to see last year when the Minister announced the NB First procurement policy. Of course, I do have a few questions, and I wonder how that will show up in the budget today. So I'm going to ask sort of a multi-part question. I'm wondering if this new procurement policy includes all public institutions, including hospitals and schools, for example. And is this work being done in coordination with other departments, such as environment and local government, agriculture perhaps, and potentially as part of the climate change action plan was one of the questions I had. And finally, how does this show up in the budget? How does that impact the budget this year? Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister.
Through the chair to the member opposite, I am also very excited about the New Brunswick First procurement plan and the impact this will have on our local economy. NB First policies apply to all government departments, school districts and regional health authorities. For other governments who are not bound by these policies, we have reached out to them to encourage participation. To your second question, a new Procurement and Economic Development Committee was created and includes participants from the other departments, including OMB, Agriculture and DTI, to name a few. All of this is being achieved within existing budgets.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister for the response. I am curious about the fact that the existing budget is able to accomplish that. I thought there might be, in some cases, there might be an increase in certain costs, but I guess that's not the case. I want to move on now, in the interest of time, to a question related to housing and residential tenancies tribunal. So actually, even just today, we're seeing reports that New Brunswick has the fastest fastest increase in rents over the past year. And so I guess we've been hearing that from New Brunswickers, that their rents are spiking. And so I do look forward to the report that's going to be coming forward from government that's been examining this issue. And on the issue of housing and the housing crisis we're facing, I wondered if during the pandemic there have been more complaints to the Residential Tenancies Tribunal. I'd also like to know, are there any additional resources going towards the Residential Tenancies Tribunal in this budget? Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, we have heard the concerns from across the province about affordable housing and rent increases in recent months. That is why Premier Higgs announced a 90-day review of the rental situation in New Brunswick. The Department of Finance and Treasury Board is leading a cross-departmental team that is evaluating the market, vacancy rates, rental fees and trends, and the impact COVID-19 may be having on all of the above. Public consultations were held to ensure New Brunswickers, community groups, landlords, and other rights holders and stakeholders are heard. 5,539 renters, landlords, and developers have participated. The final report and recommendations are due on May the 10th. The number of cases handled by the Residential Tenancies Tribunal was lower last year. We handled 5,469 cases compared to 5,601 in 2018-19.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister for the response. And I guess in the interest of time, I will need to just move on, and I'd like to ask one more question. And it's related to, obviously, as the Minister has said, this has been an unusual year. And as the Service New Brunswick services became available again after having to be shut down at the beginning of the pandemic, there have been concerns, I think in my region, but possibly elsewhere as well, around access to some of these services. And I have brought some of these to the minister's attention in the past. And one of these was around long lineups outside, for example, and especially some of the people who need to access the Service New Brunswick services may not be able to go online for various reasons, but sometimes it's because they are seniors, they may not have access to internet. And so that's been an issue. But as services have come back online, there's also, it seems, been a disparity between urban and rural services coming back. And I've heard complaints about the allocation of these resources in terms of no longer being able to do a driver's test in Sackville, for example, having to travel to a city to do so, and it being really difficult to get an appointment. In fact, I'm wondering if the minister could speak to these issues, and is there any potential increase in the budget to address this increase in need? I understand Service New Brunswick is helping with other things, but a lot of the services have been cut back elsewhere. So I wanted to ask about this issue and specifically to address the rural versus urban allocation. Thank you.
Through the chair to the member opposite, COVID protocols and restrictions have impacted lineups at service centres. Social distancing requirements mean that less people can wait inside the centres. Therefore, citizens are required to wait outside, making lineups appear longer. Our wait times at our service centres are similar to previous years. Some days are also busier than others. Mondays, Tuesdays after a long weekend, and Fridays are our busiest days. We encourage customers to avoid those days if possible and to access services via teleservices or online. COVID protocols and restrictions have impacted the scheduling of driver license road tests over the last year. Commercial driver's license road tests were unavailable for a 2-week period at the onset of the pandemic. Once reinstated, these tests were prioritized to help ensure the supply chain for New Brunswickers was not significantly impacted. Motorcycle road tests were not administered last year as they were not deemed a priority. We therefore expect a higher than normal volume of tests this year. Citizens may have to wait longer than normal for tests to be scheduled. All Class 5 road tests were cancelled beginning March 15, 2020, and did not resume until May 28th. Class 5 scheduled road tests were cancelled and rescheduled when zones reverted to lockdown, as testing is not permitted during this phase due to COVID safety protocols. To enable Class 5 testing to continue in zones in the red phase, Service New Brunswick worked with Public Safety to implement alternate testing procedures. On October 27th, 2020, the Class 5 written driver test was made available online, making New Brunswick the first Canadian jurisdiction to do so. No changes to staffing have been made.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you to the Minister for the response. The lineups have been an issue. I understand why there are lineups, and I wondered if perhaps there could be solutions that we've seen in other provinces, such as being able to make appointments or extending hours in certain areas. And I guess I didn't really hear a response around rural versus urban allocation, but in fact, due to the estimates process, I'm only able to allocate a certain amount of time to each department. So I don't have any further questions. I do want to thank the Minister and her team for being here today, and that's all from me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member from Miramichi.
Thank you, the Chair.